Whenever I think of silent films, especially silent film comedies, the first person I think of is Charlie Chaplin. Talk about a real film auteur. Not only did he write and direct and star in his films, he often composed the music for his films as well. And when I taught my high school film studies class, I wanted to start with a silent film, so usually I would go with Chaplin's film, City Lights. And the boxing match sequence in that film always got a huge reaction from 15, 16, 17-year-old kids who probably never saw a silent film before in their lives. And that's saying quite a bit for a film that's almost 100 years old. But lately I've been rediscovering the films of another great silent film comedy star. And that brings us to today's episode. This is the Kazdoy Closet. I'm Kazdoy. That's my closet full of all the stuff that I love. And today, sort of a beginner's guide to the great Buster Keaton. Let's check it out. I know it's kind of weird to approach this as a beginner's guide to Buster Keaton, considering how old these films are, but maybe if you're like me, you just kind of want to rediscover his work, or maybe you're even going to discover it for the first time, so hopefully this will be helpful to you. Little background first. Keaton began as I think he was 8 years old when he was part of his family's vaudeville act. Basically, his dad would go out there on stage and he would discuss with the audience the proper way to raise children, while in the background, Buster was doing all kinds of mischievous things and making fun of his dad until his dad finally figured it out and turned around and started throwing Buster all over the place. Kind of why he got the nickname Buster. At one point, his mom actually sewed a suitcase handle into the back of Buster's coat so they could pick him up more easily and throw him. Eventually, he got top billing for the act, and he also learned not to smile, because he would sometimes laugh and smile when his dad was throwing him. They realized the audience wouldn't laugh that much if he was laughing, so he learned how to have like a deadpan look on his face, and that kind of gave him the nickname of Stone Face. In fact, when I was growing up, all I knew about Buster Keaton was that he was stone face and that he never showed any expressions, which is really not true at all. He learned how to fall too without hurting himself. As far as I know, I don't think he was ever addicted to any painkillers like a lot of those physical comedians turned out to be, like Chevy Chase and Jerry Lewis. I think both those guys, because they did so many pratfalls, they got hooked on painkillers at one point. I mean, years later, a doctor was giving Buster Keaton a checkup, and he asked him, "So when did you break your back?" And Buster Keaton said, "I didn't break my back." It turns out he didn't even realize it, but a couple of vertebrae had some problems. He didn't even know that existed. He did struggle with alcohol later in his life, eventually dying from lung disease. And when you talk about Buster Keaton, a lot of people bring up the Charlie Chaplin versus Buster Keaton debate. Which one was funnier? Some people think that's a ridiculous debate. But, they do have a lot in common. Impeccable timing, great physicality. Chaplin had that little tramp character that he used in most of his films, if not all of his films. He, I think, was maybe a little more sentimental. Maybe he wanted the audience to like him a little bit more compared to Buster Keaton. Keaton, I think his films seem to be like on a more epic scale, more like action comedies, really. I think he might have been a little bit more athletic as well. So where do we start with Buster Keaton? I'm going to recommend a few films that you could start with if you want to check out his work. I'm going to begin with Steamboat Bill Jr. It's part of this Cohen film collection disc. Usually they put out 2 or 3 films on a disc, and sometimes you can get these through Kino. But Steamboat Bill Jr. is from 1928. It's 70 minutes long, black and white, silent, of course. This one is really not my favorite, but the last 10 minutes, there's this big storm happening, and it's amazing, with Buster making his way across this area with these houses literally falling apart right next to him. And this is the one with the famous scene of him standing there, and the front of the house falls right on top of him, and he barely misses it. He fits through a window in the falling house. And apparently most of the crew couldn't even watch this because the front of this house weighed tons. And if they didn't time this and have this figured out exactly for him to fit in this narrow window space, he would have been in an awful lot of trouble. But you can see Steamboat Bill Jr. right now on Amazon Prime and on Paramount Plus. A film I like a lot better is Sherlock Jr., also part of this Coen Films Classic Collection. And this is from 1924. It's 45 minutes long. This is the one where Buster plays a projectionist who falls asleep and has a dream that he's walking through the theater and onto the screen of the film that he's showing in the theater. Now, if you think about Woody Allen's film, The Purple Rose of Cairo, he kind of borrowed that idea in reverse, where he had a character walk from the screen into the audience. And there's an amazing sequence in here where Buster is running on top of a moving train, jumping from car to car as he runs. And there's also a really funny and clever sequence with a pool table. He's playing pool by himself, and one of the billiard balls, number 13 of course, actually is a bomb, but he doesn't know it. And he keeps shooting the balls and they keep missing that one ball. I don't know how they did it, but it's really a funny sequence. Next up, I want to talk about, going back to this other disc, The General. The General is from 1926. It's 67 minutes long. Many people consider The General to be his best film. The General is the name of a train, and Buster is a engineer during the Civil War. I actually saw The General at a college, nearby college, where they had the screening of it with a live orchestra, and I loved going to those types of things. If you ever, especially a silent film, if you ever get the chance to go see a silent film accompanied by live music, I definitely recommend it. The General is on Freevee, which is part of Amazon Prime. It's on Prime also, and it's also on Paramount Plus right now. And finally, I want to talk about another one that I really like a lot, which is The Cameraman. And The Cameraman is from 1928. It's 69 minutes long, and this is with Buster trying to become a newsreel cameraman. It's really good. Many people consider it his last great film. This one is a Criterion Collection disc with a bunch of extras on it and a book. So if you want to check it out, the next sale, you might want to check that one out. It was his first film when he moved to MGM, and his move to MGM he describes as the worst decision of his life. Apparently, the films he made there were not very good. They didn't know how to utilize his talents properly, so it kind of fizzled out. I also saw him later on in films like some of these beach party movies. He would show up in bit parts, and the film A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. He was in that one too. I used to really like that when I was a kid. I also recommend a documentary called The Great Buster. I don't see it streaming anywhere, but it was directed by Peter Bogdanovich, and it's very interesting. Another good introduction to Buster Keaton. But the good thing about all these films I'm talking about today is, as far as I know, you can see them all on YouTube for free. So check it out if you want to get into Buster Keaton. So hopefully you like this one. Feel free to leave a comment or suggestion down below. I want to thank the following people who have left comments since our last episode. They include Tina Michael, True Blood 59, Martin, and Dub Dad Matt. Leave a thumbs up. Don't leave a thumbs down. Subscribe would be great. Share this with your friends and neighbors. We are, I think, 12 away from our next goal of 500 subscribers. So I want to encourage you to subscribe. It's free. And my usual spiel is I'm not selling anything. I have no Patreon. I have no merch. I have no eBay store. Just sharing my love of this stuff with you out there in the darkness. You can also check out the Kazdoy Closet on Letterboxd. There's a link down below in the show notes where I leave very brief written reviews about other things that I'm watching. And we have a new person following us. Mike's Movies is now following us on Letterboxd. So welcome, Mike's Movies. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.